Dictatorship in America? Yeah, it's possible. Now even plausible. Ready for it? If not, watch Navigating American Dictatorship, this short series which will talk about how dictatorship functions as a dynamic, characteristics of it, its need for crisis in order to continue, to consolidate power, to silence its critics, intimidate its citizens. Want to know how to survive, maybe even subvert American dictatorship? Stay tuned.
You're not going to be a dictator, are you? I said, no, other than day one.
Welcome to Dictatorship 1.0 Introductions. This is Dr. Loic Trams's Trump-era teach-ins, and I'm Michael Loic Trams, director of the Traces Center of History and Culture in the American Heartland, the Upper Midwest, and at Hausdorff in the heart of Germany. For 8 months in 2016, I ran for U.S. Senate from Iowa, again where I'm from. Grew up on a farm there. And I had a motto, neither left nor right, but always up front. I'm not a CNN or MSNBC or Fox commentator. I don't have a career invested in pursuing people's opinions and getting them to think a certain way. My career has been as an educator to get people to simply think. And believe it or not, I'm still one of those people in the world, one of those Americans left, that thinks that our political divisions are not as important as that we share the same country, indeed the same planet, and we all want to go forward. And I'm suspicious and critical of both the far right and the far left. I'm actually a centrist. There are some of us around. And so when I speak to you in these video series, I'm really speaking to everybody. I believe that the far right and the far left are too rigid, too ideological. And the rest of us in the middle, we're more likely to consider different ways of seeing a problem and more likely to be fluid. In fact, the ideologues actually fear and resent these people who are more open-minded and interested in the wider picture. So let's think about the wider picture. What does basically everybody want, no matter their religion, ethnic background, gender, anything? They want to have a good life. Of course, everyone defines a good life differently, but I would say that in a good life, almost universally, it means there's freedom from want. People don't want to be afraid of where will they get their next meal. Will their roof leak by the next heavy rain? Will they be cold? Will their children be hungry or cold? No. So they want freedom from want. That's a basic. We can just leave that to the side. Beyond that, though, I think almost everybody wants freedom from fear. They don't want to be afraid and live constantly wondering what's going to come next. People don't want stress. When we lose a child, God forbid, or our partner leaves us or dies, or our house burns up, or we get fired from our great cushy job, those are new experiences for most of us. And we look for role models. We read other people's biographies, we listen to music, someone talking about those themes. We look to find out what have others done that we could emulate to make the hurt less, to make the stress less, to make the uncertainty less. We look for patterns. We look for information. Well, in the United States, we've never had an outright dictatorship before. The man who the majority of the electorate apparently voted for says he wants to be a dictator. I'm not mocking that. I'm just quoting the man. And because this is a new thing for Americans, a lot of us are going to be under stress. People who normally think they're more on the right, people on the left, people who voted for Trump, people who didn't vote for Trump. I think a lot of Trump voters will be surprised. Some are already saying, oh, if we thought that was just campaign bravado. Well, take people by what they say. So when we feel stress, we're feeling instability. Things are changing too quickly, too much. We can't keep up with the changes. That stresses us. Also, unfairness stresses us. Why should we work all the time and not get paid justly for it? Why should we work all the time and not have a vacation? Why should our kids not have a chance to go to good quality schools that our tax monies in theory pay for? So anytime that there's an institutionalized injustice, people get stressed. Why did black people have to sit at the back of the bus in pre-civil rights South? Why couldn't women vote until 1920 in the United States? Why is there still slavery in parts of the world, human trafficking? Those things don't have to be, right? Those stress us, either those having those experiences or the rest of us. So we seek a system of balance to alleviate stress, instability, unfairness. And finally, a lack of awareness of information stresses us. How do you live in a dictatorship? What could happen living under dictatorship? Well, some of my greatest history teachers gave me sound bites that stayed with me for decades. One was, history is a seamless garment. It's really great. The idea that we put on this mantle of time and that some of the same things keep happening during the medieval period, the Renaissance, during the Civil War, during ancient Egypt. So humans keep creating similar dynamics. And if we keep repeating them, we're likely to get similar results. If you keep doing the same thing, you're likely going to get the same result. So therefore, change what's not getting you where you want to go. This is why I think it's really helpful, no matter what your political stripes, to ramp down the emotion and the accusations and the hype and just talk about dictatorship. This is a new experience in the American experience. So how do we deal with this? What's happened in other dictatorships? What could happen in this one? I'm looking at this factually, without the emotion, neither left nor right spinning, just being upfront. Factual, based on historical experiences, best as I can tell. I mean, I've been studying these things for 35 years, so I'm not new to this. And then I like to take these conclusions, these patterns that I identify, and help you, the audience, to consider this yourself. My job, in selected job in this series, isn't to provide you the right answers. It's to help you find some of the right questions. To point out things that people aren't generally thinking about, I think. And then once you realize, this is actually something we should ponder, then that you do some of the work. It's a great compliment to me if you listen to what I'm saying, but don't take what I'm saying as gospel. Google it or go to your favorite source of information. Go to your library. Talk to your Uncle Fred. What did he experience in the past? But think about these things because it's going to be a matter of life. I don't want to say death, not for everybody. But if you're better prepared, you can deal with the stress to come because there's going to be stress. Anytime you take a system and you interrupt a system, whether it's a good system or a bad system, a Nazi system, a communist system, an American system, capitalist, any system, and you interrupt it, it shocks people. It's stressful. So this series is all about dictatorship and what you can do. Over 35 years, I've been studying how dictatorship forms, functions, and ultimately fails, with an emphasis on dictatorship's impact on those subjected to dictatorship, as well as subjects' options for surviving, if not subverting, dictatorship, not only as a form of government for an elite at the top, but as experienced as daily way of life for millions at the bottom. My focus has been mainly on Nazi Germany's so-called Third Reich. Everyone knows about Adolf Hitler, his plans, his henchmen, and the consequences of their project. But I've also looked to communist and African or Latin American, Asian dictatorships over time. What's important is not to just think about dictatorship in a frozen moment of time, but over time in context. In pursuit of understanding dictatorships better, even though it was very unlikely, this Iowa farm boy went to the Soviet Union in the winter of 1982, the summer of 1985, and to post-Soviet Russia in 1994. Since 1998, I've been in Cuba, 10 days, in China, 18 days, and Vietnam for a month. More will follow, but for now, that's enough about me and this series. What about you, my target audience?